So hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 135 of Level Up, 60 minutes of live Q&A where your questions really do drive the show. Ella and Shanice are over in the social chat, so please do introduce yourself to them, let them know your name, and of course the city from where you're joining. They're going to post a link into the chat so that you can vote up the questions that you would most like answered and for you to be able to add your own. If your question is selected and submitted to the panel, your name's going to appear in the credits at the end of the show. So do get yours in early and stay with us to see all of that happening. Today, we're talking about how to break into IT service management as a career. Of course, service management grew out of the challenges of scaling IT operations way back in the 1980s and 1990s, with the adoption really taking off, I suppose, during the outsourcing era that followed. Established now with all manner of tools, platforms, techniques, and even automations, it forms the bedrock of many careers in IT. So helping us make sense of all of this and plotting our course through it all is our panel of experts. So let's jump in and meet them all. Kicking us off today is Karen. Karen Brusch is an established service management specialist and chair, of course, of itSMF in the UK, an author and contributor to service management communities. Her career spans outsourcing providers, client organizations, always specializing in service design and, of course, service transition. So welcome back to Level Up, Karen. Lovely to see you.
Yeah, good. It's great to be here and welcome everyone who's on the show. So at the moment, I'm working on an initiative for developing a youth conference in the UK for people considering a service management career and also those who are newly joined. So it's really exciting in the UK at the moment. We're not sure exactly when it's going to fly. So that's why I'm here, really. I'm really passionate about bringing on young professionals into service management.
Such an important bridge to make, isn't it, between studying STEM subjects and others at school, college, university, and so on, and then building that bridge into meaningful careers. So thank you, Karen. We'll keep a watchful eye on all of that work as it develops. Jan van Bon is chair and lead architect at the SURVUZ Foundation, where he builds sustainable improvement for his clients with the unified service management method. A lifelong contributor, I think it's fair to say, to the service management community. Jan reviews and co-authors a wide range of publications. Welcome back to Level Up.
Yes, thank you. Nice to be here again. I think one of the things that's keeping me busy lately is similar to what Karen said. The SURVUZ Foundation is focusing on improving the education of young students by teaching them the new thinking of the USM method, which is quite opposite to the traditional way of looking at service management. So I think we're in the same game, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much indeed. Stephan Brendel next. His career, of course, has service management running through it as a golden thread from his earliest career through to the present day, active in several membership associations around the world, including ITSMF in Germany. Stephan is the regional lead for Europe and Latin America here at APMG. Welcome back to Level Up, Stephan.
Thanks, Nick. And hello to everybody out there and to the panel. Just to add on what we're doing on ITSMF Germany, currently transforming the association into a professional body. And the reason for that is that the profession of an IT service manager is not even recognized in most countries, by the way, as a profession. And that's a way for us to gain that, which probably feeds into all the initiatives that Jan and Karen have already mentioned.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. It just shows how nothing stands still at all. We move from, first of all, membership bodies that are solving very basic problems all the way through to, building out professional career paths and beyond. Somebody who's working in that space as well is Josyph Hernandez. He's the managing director at Project Performance People, who work with a wide variety of clients, including the Australian federal government agencies and other leading global organizations. His work includes the development of business cases as well for ICT investment across the full life cycle, not just from thinking them up in the first place, but also bridging the management and delivery and benefits realization as well. So welcome to Level Up, Josyph. It's really lovely to have you on the panel today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me here today. I'm very happy to be here sharing with you these moments and these questions. And I'm looking forward to a robust conversation and presentation about this topic. It's a topic close to my heart. I've been learning it for the past 15 years, multiple mentors from ITSMF, all the way back to the project management space and all the lines in between and all the gray spaces. So it's very exciting to be here.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you for flying the flag as well for Western Australia and the wonderful city of Perth. Mart Rovers joins us today. He's, of course, the president of INTERPROM, where he leads teams in both Europe and in the USA. His work now focuses largely on leadership coaching, but it's built on a lifetime contribution to local and international service management groups, where members have helped each other with innovative solutions to real business problems. Welcome back to the panel, Mart. Great to see you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Thanks for having me, and thank you everybody for joining. And it's great to be among such esteemed panel. Looking very much forward to all the questions. And it's about breaking into service management. Once I started doing this for a living, little did I know that before that, in the corporate world, I actually was already doing service management. So it was not really breaking in, as in you might already be doing service management. Maybe not called service management. So who knows? Looking forward to these questions.
Absolutely. And it's kind of interesting, isn't it, where there's that aha moment, okay, where you actually find out, that you can identify the work that you do with a whole set of principles, practices, methods and frameworks and so on. So fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, completing our on-camera team today is our question master, who's joining us from the Thames Valley here in the UK, Charlotte Miller. So welcome, Charlotte. I hope that you had a great weekend.
I certainly did. I'm getting ready for spring because it's just around the corner. I think it starts this week. Very much spring cleaning and very much out in the outdoors enjoying the sunshine. So yes, thank you very much for asking. Looking forward to today's show.
All right, excellent. And for those colleagues who are in the Southern Hemisphere who are, sweltering under the last throes of summer, then we salute you. All right, very good. So, Charlotte, I think we should jump straight in. We have quite an active group already on social media, which is great to see. And I want to give a special welcome to Klaus Derner, who has been joining us and pre-submitted a question, but he's also live online as well at the same time. So, Charlotte, may we take our first question, please?
We certainly can, Nick. It is from Klaus, as you say, and their question is, what is your definition of service?
Okay, well, let's get the ball rolling. Stephan, if you can, start us off, please.
Yeah, there are. This is a very common question, and there are hundreds of definitions. I would like to pick one, which is from the ISO 20000 standard, which has been developed out of the British standard 15000 a couple of years ago. And that simply says a service is a means or a method that organizations use to deliver results that customers value and wish to achieve. Let's stop here. It's a bit longer, but I think it's the customer orientation, something customers want, that is here defined as a service.
Yeah, I think that word value is really, really important in that, isn't it? Customers value, it's such an important word. Thank you so much, Stephan, for kind of starting us off on this journey. Karen, your thoughts, please, then we'll hear from Jan.
Yeah, I completely agree with Stephan. Actually, I was going to say exactly the same, that service is whatever delivers value. If it doesn't deliver value, you've got to ask the question as to why you're doing it. But also, service derives from a demand. And that's something that we have to be mindful of when we get involved in new projects that we might think are really good for our customers. We might develop new products, but if there's no demand for it, how's it going to fly? The service has to have a demand, have a value. This is actually one of the principles of ITIL 4, but to my mind is something that we do in many industries in any case, and should be exactly the same for service management.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So we've got value, we've got demand. Jan, what would you add to these things? And then we'll hear from Mart.
Yeah, I think I'm totally in agreement with these kind of definitions, but they are totally abstract. You can't work on them. They are totally not operational at all. Of course, service is something the one does for the other. And of course, it's upon a demand. And of course, it provides value. Otherwise, there would be no use in it. But it's totally non-operational. You can't work on it. You can't define it. You can't decompose it. You don't know how to handle it. So the definition of service, and I've done some research on that, must be more operational than this. And in the USM method, we define a service as a supported facility that is composed of goods and actions. Now, that is something that you can handle. That is something that you can make operational. You can define, you can report on, etc. So if anyone wants to really test his own definition of his service, I would recommend to see it as a supported facility that is, of course, provided by a provider to a customer upon demand, creating value, but now you know how to decompose and to handle it. And that, I think, enables us to do something much more with the whole idea of service than all these abstract definitions that we've been hearing for decades now.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Jan is a great champion for kind of getting down our feet on the ground, firmly on the ground, okay, and getting to, the absolute heart of the matter. So thank you, Jan. Mart, your thoughts on this, please?
Well, to me, as far as the definition of a service, I'm thinking of this show, actually, and particularly the people aspect of this show. Think about it. What is it? 5, 6 continents that are behind the production of this show, and we all, as contributors, try to be of value to our audience in the delivery of whatever we say, whatever we do, and it takes all these people, with that same mindset to be of value. So to me, it would be an operational definition of this word service.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, panel. Thank you. What a great question, Klaus, to kind of start us off on the show and get us thinking about this whole world of, service management and, how it all begins to dovetail together. So let's just visit our online community. So we've got a whole variety of people joining from around the world. Sean, thank you so much. I don't know if you're from the North or the South Island there, Sean, but you're very welcome. Great to see New Zealand being represented on Level Up today. And also we've got Agogo joining us as well. Can't quite remember. I'm sure that I've seen your name before, Agogo, but I can't quite remember the city or the country from where you're joining. So do let us know in the chat. Marlene is, of course, a regular contributor to Level Up and is often on the panel as well, joining from the very beautiful city of Melbourne. Apologies about that, Josyph, but I do enjoy a cup of coffee in a coffee shop in Melbourne from time to time. And also Mohammed joining us from Iran today. Is brilliant to see you online. Excellent. So, Charlotte, let's move on if we can, please, and we'll take our next question.
Of course, Nick. We've got a question from Sophie in Athens in Greece. What do you recommend is a good self-assessment to determine if I'm the right fit for IT service management?
So it's kind of almost one of those sort of career tools that you might use, or some way to go about imagining, could I be a service management professional? Karen, your thoughts on this, please.
Yeah, when I saw this question on Slido, I was like, that's a really good question. And the more I thought about it, I actually think that you could go out and do self-assessment, but actually there are so many varied opportunities within service management that there's something for everybody, and that might sound a bit of a cop-out answer, but there are some very different streams. So where a self-assessment tool could come in handy is, well, where within service management would I fit best, rather than could I fit at all. I'm a great believer in there's a free resource, 16personalities.com, which I'll drop the URL in so that it can be shared. It just gives you an idea of what kind of person you are and how well you interface. The benefit of that then will enable you to understand, will I be somebody who's good, for example, dealing directly with customers, or am I better with problem solving and working behind the scenes? So it gives you a really good starter for 10. As I said, it's completely free, and just give you that view. I think the real challenge is finding out what careers are available out in service management. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, I think there's a really good point. It's kind of like chicken and egg, really, isn't it? You know, what are the opportunities? What are my skills? What do I enjoy doing? And I very much think that we need to follow in life, you know, what our heart is saying as well as our heads. Because if you find a role where, you know, that excites and delights you, then you're no longer working. You're just having fun most of the time. So from that point of view, it's really, really important. Thank you, Karen. And we'll look forward to getting that link into the chat for everybody. Stephan, your thoughts, please, and then we'll hear from Mart.
Yeah, Sophie, I think Karen touched one point already, which I think is important, and that is communication skills. Because it's IT service management, as technical as it sounds, it is by far not necessarily. It is about negotiation skills, for example, if it's about negotiating service level agreements between parties. It's, as Karen said, it depends also on where you are. So if it's on a service desk where you distinguish between an incident and a problem, which is still the most common use of IT service management, but it's also about reporting financials, because that comes with the service level agreement. So the good self-assessment is look at yourself and find out if this is something you would like to do. And if you think that I'm not technical enough, that doesn't matter. That really doesn't matter.
Okay, thank you very much. It is some good advice there to kind of get you going. I'd like to hear from Mart next, please, if I may, and then we'll hear from Jan.
A good self-assessment. There are definitely maybe some coaches available online that some of them actually wouldn't mind to do it at no charge, just to introduce you to the world of service management. So that would be a good reflection, as in, am I the right personality based on somebody who's experienced in this field? A more technical answer quickly is something that I put in the. Hopefully, you can display that link. Is from the free standard from FitSM, fitsm.eu. There's a downloads section that talks about, hey, how to self-assess service management, what I'm doing. As I said, that's more the technical side of it. But again, it's a free resource.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. It's getting that, you know, that kind of navigation, isn't it, to those value-added free resources, you know, when your early career that are so important. Jan, your thoughts, please.
Well, as Stephan said, IT service management is not about the technology. The word is composed of three components. And the IT is the technology, of course, the service is the subject, but the focus, the emphasis of this term is about management. Now, the self-assessment should also always be addressing the management quality you have. And management appears in two ways. And based on the separation of duty principle, you can either be on the process specification side or on the coordination operational side of it. And that's something you should ask yourself. Are you good at defining and exploring stuff and helping others to improve what they do, or are you good at the coordination of the people or the technology? And that's both sides of management that should be addressed. And I think it requires very different skills and therefore very different people to be either on the matrix on the left side of the process or on the top side of the coordination.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, panel. Some great starting points there. And I know there's a lot of links, and I can see the social team already quite active, actually, getting those social links kind of quickly compiled and into the chat for you all. Really good point there from Alexandra, who is talking about, you know, how we think about value more widely in today's world. And asking us to think beyond purely the bottom line, you know, beyond the financial quadrant of value and into other areas as well. And if you're working in not just the public sector, but a whole variety of service-led initiatives, then that's extremely important. So thank you very much indeed. And one thing to consider as well when you're doing these self-evaluations is, regrettably, across the world, people tend to confuse skills, knowledge, and aptitude quite a lot. So you'll see on some websites them referring to knowledge attributes as skills, and on other ones the opposite is true, and so on and so on. So when you're looking at these things, just think about what kind of a person you are and how you're centered and what aptitude you have, because it's not always expressed terribly well or terribly consistently when you're looking across all of those different products and toolkits and so on. All right, so some great advice there from the panel to kind of get us going. Now, I can see lots of people online, and if you've got a question for the panel, please don't be shy. Just type it straight in, okay, and into the chat, and Shanice and Ella will pick it up and they will bring it in front of the panel on your behalf. And great to see you online, Fenori from Abuja. Really great to see you today. Let's move on then, Charlotte. If we can, we'll take our next question.
Thanks, Nick. We've got Ethan. Got a question from one of our panelists. Jan asks, what non-IT skills are recommended to stand out in ITSM?
All right. So, Jan, we're going to come to you last if we can do, and we'll let other panel members apply their brains to this one. So, non-IT skills. Well, first of all, I would say that anybody that's involved in delivery of service needs great patience and fortitude, all right, to be able to see things through, because not everything goes swimmingly every day. There are occasional glitches that you kind of need to really kind of think about. All right, well, when you're doing your best. So consider that first of all. you need to have that fortitude. Mart, your thoughts, please, and then we'll hear from Karen.
One word comes to mind, and that is the mindset. Having the right mindset to be of service, and of course that means you position yourself in somebody else's as the recipient of that service. How would this person perceive, when I do this or when I don't do that? In other words, what's in it for that person or not in it for that person? So it's that way of thinking and positioning yourself, in essence, the service mindset.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Karen, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think a really important quality is to be curious. That enables you to solve lots of different problems, but also being curious about what other people are doing, learning new things. Getting to the bottom of what customers really want. So, and it's the bedrock of negotiation, of bringing together end-to-end services. So, yeah, curiosity for me is really key.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Curiosity. It's a great word, isn't it? And a fantastic attribute, to have in any service provision. Stephan, your thoughts next?
Yeah, I absolutely agree about the mindset, about curiosity. But there's also there's skills like you have to understand governance. You have to understand financial. You have to understand reporting, because that comes with it. In particular, governance, with all the regulations that are set by governments or other standards where you have to follow, and this is quite an area where service managers struggle with. On one hand, to be flexible, agile. On the other hand, have to follow regulations and certain standards. So that's why I think governance is an important part.
Some good thoughts here as well coming from our audience. AO is talking about having the ability to sell, and Mohammed has jumped in as well with this concept of design thinking, and we might come back to that in another show pretty soon, actually, Mohammed, looking at design thinking. And Jan, you put the question to the panel. What are your thoughts on this one?
There's, of course, lots of things that good people always require. And I think the customer perspective, the empathy aspect that was addressed by Mart is an excellent one. And curiosity is putting yourself in the same position, looking at the customer. If the customer isn't central to everything you think, you will never be a good service manager. Technology is something different. A manager doesn't need to master all technology aspects. But I think the most important skill that anyone entering service management nowadays will need is defined by the situation where service management now finds itself, which is complexity. It's getting more complex every day. That means that if you don't have the major skill of being able to reduce complexity and overseeing the game, you will never master the game. It's easy. So I think the most important skill to have is the ability to reduce complexity.
Yeah, I think that is something that comes with time. I think our ability to manage how we do that is very important as well. On occasions, if you get that wrong, you can oversimplify and almost appear patronizing in some ways, even though your intention might not be to do that, might be the opposite of that. But being able to find a way to present complex situations in a clear and concise manner is something that can be developed over time. Josyph, you work with a lot of people in different roles. How do you manage to coach people in that way? What are the key things that you would try to get across to early career people about looking at complex situations and trying to distill them down into something which is clear and easy to understand?
That's a very interesting question, because we're all human beings in the end. No matter how much technology you put out there and how complex it gets, you need to help people understand. And the best way to do it is to listen actively. The concept of active listening is one of those IT skills that most people don't have. They have been evolving through a technological landscape that have accelerated for the past 20 years. And the waves of change are getting smaller and smaller as we move into the information age. So people are more busy and they're not focusing on listening to other people. So communication, like you guys mentioned before, is excellent. Adaptability is another one of those skills, but listening actively to the people that you're engaging with, fully with your whole body, non-verbal, verbal cues, physicality, visual cues, tonality, that takes the complexity to an even higher level than just the IT part. So if you add the complexity of the human beings and the complexity of the technology and mix it together, you're taking a big chunk of data every single time you engage with these problems. And that's why most people find these environments chaotic. Not many people can actually confront these landscapes in a way that they can thrive through them. Is mostly the case of what you mentioned, Nick, that it takes patience. They pay me for my patience. I say that a lot where I work, because you need to show up with a spirit of curiosity, like Karen said, but also active listening. What is really the problem that we're trying to solve that would enable other problems to become apparent? And then find a communication style to reflect that problem back to the client, which comes from consulting skills, teaching skills, training skills, interpersonal skills, and then pilot that and surf through that in a way that you can actually do what you're good at, which in the end is the IT service management skill set, which is highly specialized and not very well known, I have to say. And unless you're able to distill that in a way that they're willing to receive it, it's going to be more challenging.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And a great shout out there to, those active listening skills. If you've been following Level Up for some time, this is really at the heart of raising your game. It's something that we can all do. We can all do it. It's just that we choose not to. We begin thinking about our answer to the question rather than actually actively listening to what the other person is saying. So a brilliant intervention. Thank you so much, Josyph. Charlotte, I can see we've got live questions coming in. So let's get on, please, and we'll take our next question.
Thanks, Nick. We have a live question, and it's coming from Kevin. Kevin is in Liverpool, and Kevin asks, which qualification should I start with? Service strategy and design, service transition, service operation, or project management to be successful in IT service management?
Wow, well, that's quite a list, isn't it, really? And I'm sure if we had more characters, we could probably add even more to it. Mart, help me out here. Where would you begin? And then we'll hear from the rest of the panel.
I'm not going to limit myself to just one answer. I'm going to say you need to find a balance between the execution side and the strategic side of service management. As in, know a little bit of both when you start your career in this space. As in, don't focus just on operational or just one of those the impressive list. Find a balance, because they need that balance throughout. When you design services, when you deliver services, when you improve services, you always need those two perspectives.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Stephan, where would you begin?
Yeah, well, Kevin, you just heard it. It's also about active listening. So the first question that comes to my mind is, what organizations are you in when you ask that question? So look at that organization. Remember what Jan said about the complexity, which comes along with it. Or if it's just in general, then the complexity might make the answer very difficult. Depending on where you want to go. So if it's an early career start, I would really just agree with what Mart said. If it's something very special, then you actually have to make that choice depending on where you are going to.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Karen, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think for me, one thing that's really important is to understand consequences. So alluding back to what Stephan was saying earlier about governance, what's the consequence of not doing good design? What's the consequence of not understanding how to transition something into live for your customers? I'm not sure whether doing a qualification is necessarily the first thing I would do. I would speak to lots of people. That active listening skill, what's happened before as a result of poor design, poor transition, not listening to the customer's need. I think qualifications will come later once you know what direction you want to go in. If you wanted to do something basic, there are obviously foundation qualifications in IT service management, in project management, in service integration, in agile. There are many ways you could go. But I think first, it's talking to people and listening and understanding those consequences.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Jan, your thoughts on this?
The question is about the start of the journey of IT service management. And I think there's only two options if you want to start something. It's not by jumping into the water, into the deep. It's starting by understanding the game. And there's only two options that I know of that address a simpler overview of this IT service management game. The first is itSMF, which is actually a smaller version of the complexity of ITIL's set of practices. And the second one is the Unified Service Management Method, which is a more methodical approach. So starting always starts with the beginning. So that means that you have to focus on an overview before you dive into anything like ITIL strategy, or ITIL this or ITIL that. Well, that would be my recommendation. Please make it simple and start at the beginning before you build on any of your skills.
Thank you very much indeed, panel. And thank you to Kevin for submitting the question. The one thing that I would suggest with qualifications is that they're really about crystallizing your aptitude into some evidence that others can use. And one way in which you can crystallize your experience is to volunteer. So often, to get a new role, people are looking for a blend of aptitude, but also some experience as well. So if you can't get it in your current role, then volunteer either with your current employer or outside of work to take on a role where those kinds of experiences are more likely to be able to happen. And then you've got some evidence to support the certification that you decide to take as well. All right, so very good. Let's move on if we can, Charlotte, and we'll take our next question, please.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a question from a LinkedIn viewer. It's just been added. Why are membership bodies struggling to remain relevant?
Right. Okay. Now, I'm just going to give you some context, panel, for this, because the conversation in the chat is a little bit more direct than this, but I wanted to broaden this out a wee bit, okay? Because I think that I'm fortunate enough to have had a career that spanned the full era of IT service management to date. And in that time, I've seen the way in which colleagues help and support each other and interact with each other. And the demands placed upon membership bodies evolved tremendously from the early days. So that is the context, I think, that the question is being put in. So I wonder who is going to help us out from the panel to be able to kind of give us their thoughts on the relevance of the modern membership body and its connection with its communities. Stephan first, and then we'll hear from Josyph.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. And good question from this viewer. It's one that probably Karen and I struggle with as well, as we are in the leadership teams of these associations. So one thing probably is, in particular for ITSMF, in the beginning, this was to support ITIL, and it had kind of that public character, so community driven. But since ITIL is completely commercialized, there's not even a request coming to the ITSMF membership bodies to help and support that, which is a turnaround, 180 degrees. Yeah, but in fact, service management doesn't equal ITIL. For a long time, that has been gone, and now it's professional membership organizations are listening to customers where the authors of ITILs are not listening anymore. I mean, that's what you can see. We are getting members. We're getting new members. I can say that. We're losing members who still are on the old train. We're getting new ones who understand that there is no holistic approach possible anymore unless you have an approach like what Jan said about USM. But you can't have this with an operational model holistically. It's not possible. That's not where the world's moving to. And we have a lot of members who support the idea that itSMF as a membership body is trying to listen, trying to find new solutions and support them. And it's not the same as it used to be, but there's a light on the horizon, and it's not the train coming in the tunnel.
Okay. It's always one to look out for, isn't it, when you're looking that far ahead? So thank you very much indeed, Stephan. Might come back to some of those thoughts in a few moments. Josyph, what's the role of the membership body, and how do membership bodies remain relevant for their audience?
Well, it's a very interesting question, because I have had direct experience with this over the past 15 years, seeing how many of my colleagues and even my clients inquire about membership bodies, especially ITSMF here in Australia and the UK, also in South America. And one clear answer that I get from the people that I deal with is the popularity of other frameworks and other membership bodies like Scrum and Agile. People seem to grapple those concepts because they're sticky notes on a wall, and we're going back to primary school where we're actually doing things manually, as opposed to grappling with the concepts of IT service management that take us on a journey of extremely complex diagrams and vocabulary that, unless you have studied definitions and can hold a conversation at that level, you won't be able to communicate at the same level. And the same problem that you're seeing with people that are mainly functional and have soft skills in these technologies that enable that delivery versus the people that speak the technical jargon. It's easier to understand the person who distills meaning and make things easier to comprehend than it is to grapple with complex concepts and communicate those to an audience that is not interested. So most of the membership bodies have lectured and done presentations and tried to make it relevant with case studies. That part of them is valuable and is still popular, especially for the people that know the field. But the majority are on a different framework. They're thinking Kanban, Scrum, Agile. I can do that. I can run a daily stand-up. If I call it a Scrum, who cares? It's easy. This is complex.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? And it's one that really does face us. This concept of the perhaps in the past of a career that was evolving within within a single discipline, perhaps across to now what most people's experience is, which is much more of, if I could call it this, more of a portfolio career, which is likely to require not just experience of, but also real understanding of a whole variety of different ways of working as alongside your core. Karen, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, well, like Stephan, ITSMF UK has had a very similar experience. I would say that we are in a completely different place, providing, a fairly different offering to what we were doing 3 years ago. Yeah, absolutely. It's not an idle shop anymore. We look at all types of different frameworks. In fact, one of our communities of practice did a review of what service management frameworks are out there, and we stopped when we got to 20. It was just ridiculous, but we did like a summary. But we're finding that there are certain events, certain types of events that are really popular with our membership, and they're going back to basics. So you mentioned Kanban. We've had events on Kanban. We've had events on is the CAB relevant anymore for change management? Some really good discussions, and yeah, I think we've lost a few members along the way, but we're gaining some really good gaining some good members from right across different industries and government, and it's really encouraging. And by opening up to young professionals and looking at the next generation, and what's important to the next generation, is leading us in a great direction.
Thank you very much, Adia. I think it's natural. Okay, it's natural, normal, perfectly understandable as well. And in any organisation, whether you're, talking about it as a professional membership body or a volunteer organisation outside of work, you see this happening all of the time. People come together for a very specific reason, and that cause is generally then progressed and it evolves over time. And then at some point or another, you've dealt with that, right? And then you move on. And, people who are at, their kind of late career stage, they start to move on, and you get new blood kind of coming into organizations, and they reinvent themselves. Final word on this, Jan, before we move on.
Yeah, I've seen all these ITSMF organizations coming up and going down, and others as well. And at the beginning, the model was that we organized events where people explain messages, send messages about experiences and about views and about technology, etc. But the thing that is missing lately so dearly, and partly because of COVID, of course, but it's the meeting of people. I run a monthly meetup with people where we have real discussions and really exchange things and really co-develop new stuff. That is highly valued. I haven't seen that in the ITSMF environment for a decade anymore. And I think that should be brought back to the audience. Real discussions where people meet each other. It can be done online, it can be done on site. But if you don't focus on the discussions, you get lost in the old I'm sending a message format.
Okay, it's a really good point. And it's one that's really at the heart of the Level Up concept, where instead of having 50 minutes of presentation and 10 minutes of Q&A, we have 60 minutes of Q&A. It's all Q&A. And AO, who put the point, also asked a secondary question, what is APMG doing, to try and revive, if you like, interest worldwide in IT service management. I'm hoping, my friend, that you're beginning to see some of the evidence of that, kind of coming out. We work with professional bodies all over the world with many different disciplines, and APMG is often the catalyst for bringing people together in meaningful ways, whether it's a one-to-one interview with Richard, our founder and CEO, or whether it's a group and a panel discussion like this. So excellent questions. Thank you so much, AO, for supporting us throughout and putting your questions into the panel. Really good to have you online today, my friend. Charlotte, if we can, let's move on and take our next question, please.
Thanks, Nick. We've had a live question come in from Jane, who's in Yorkshire. They ask, what is the role of IT service management?
All right. So what is the role of IT service management from Jane? Mart, start us off then, please.
I'll go back to the comment earlier made, I think it was Jan, about complexity. Service management, to me, it's like the glue between so many moving parts that make up a service, and that can be complex, but the service management itself, and it is that glue, and it makes sure that all these moving parts work in tandem and in a system-like fashion. In other words, that the outcome is guaranteed or assured that there will be of quality and of value to the recipient of the service. To me, that's how I see service management.
Thank you very much indeed. Jan, your thoughts, please.
I think it's management, of course, and management is the organizing and coordinating of resources to achieve a goal. And the goal, of course, is creating value. So the focus should be on value in a customer-driven way. That's the whole role of service management. Setting up and coordinating the delivery of supported facilities to customers who value what you bring to them. Actually, it's quite easy because of its own definition. And of course, if you look at the future, the role of IT service management should be the thing that Mart told me, the glue, because IT is in everything now. There's no line of discipline that is so integrated in everything else as IT is. So IT should be looking at all the others and focusing on integration. And I think the enterprise should be at the horizon of everyone involved in IT service management.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. It's a really good question, Jane. Thank you for asking it. I would say that management is a verb. All right, so you have to do something. So whatever you're, it's nice to have the business card. It's nice to have the job title. But if you're not actually doing something, if you're not actively engaged in it, then come on. So manage those services. All right, really get engaged. Really look at things. Listen. As Josyph was saying earlier on, wear that cap of curiosity, I think that Karen recommended earlier on, and actively engage to improve your service design, your service delivery, and your service benefit outcomes. Very good, Charlotte. We're pressed for time, but let's see what we can do. Let's take our next question to the panel.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a question from Sophie in Greece again. Sophie asks, how do I best stand out when applying for IT service management positions?
Karen, how would you encourage somebody to stand out from the crowd? And then we'll hear from Josyph.
So very simple for me. I need to see on anybody who's applying for a job that they're good collaborators. That they've worked with other people, that they've worked together to achieve something. I find that far more valuable in recruiting into service management than somebody who is very focused on a particular area, which is kind of ironic given that I specialize in service design, but that's a naturally collaborative role. It's really key in the service management space to be able to look sideways, not just look at what you're doing yourself. So it goes back to that curiosity. I'll have people. Do people have evidence that they're collaborating, and also what are their hobbies? What's their all-round skill set, and how can I make use of the fact that they might be. They might be involved in scouts or in other clubs, which demonstrates other skills that we can bring to the table.
Absolutely, such an easy thing to correct as well. Look at how many LinkedIn profiles are all about me, with me being the person who authored the LinkedIn profile. Look at how few put that collaborative word right in there, right at the very beginning as the key word, the key action word in the tagline. That's how you stand out. Josyph, your thoughts then, Stephan?
I have been involved recently in a campaign for recruiting in IT service management positions, all sorts of roles from change manager to service desk manager to service delivery manager to strategy consultant and benefit realization, outcomes-driven project management. the process by which all of this recruitment occurs is no different for IT service management. People need to produce a CV answering a selection criteria or explaining how they are fit for the role. Usually, I skim through my CVs very quickly and I look at a combination of qualifications, experience, and also a personal factor that is individual that I thought, oh, something I read in there prompts me to want to talk to this person. That triggers straight away a reduction from 120 CVs down to 5. And I take those 5 individuals and I want to meet them. I want to have a conversation with them. I'd rather have a conversation with them rather than an interview. But what stands out is the capability to be personable, to connect to the person that they're talking to rather than selling like a vacuum cleaner salesman knocking on your door, ITSMF skills or IT service management prowess. Usually I stay away from those individuals. One thing that is very common here in Australia is to hire people that actually are not difficult, but rather amiable and easy to deal with, because that is excellent. I can deal with everything else. I can teach them everything else. I can share my knowledge. I can give them information, but I cannot teach people how to be nice.
Okay, really good point. What you hire on aptitude, and you train then on the specifics after that. Really good advice there. Thank you so much, Josyph. Stephan, and then Mart.
Yeah, Josyph, I really resonate with what you said about people being nice, but I also want to refer back to what Jan said earlier. It's not us and them. It's a wide area. Business is IT, so a broad mindset about things that are happening, a broad mindset about the business, which is also important for your career step after IT service management, which is the BRM. It's the same requirement needed for that.
Okay, thank you so much indeed. Mart, final thoughts?
BRM meaning Business Relationship Manager, just for those that are not familiar with the acronym. The first thought that came to mind was being an outside-in thinker, being of service. Can you position yourself in the shoes of the recipient of the services? So can you think and then accordingly act outside in?
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Excellent. Well, great question. So thank you for submitting that online today. Charlotte, I think if we hurry, we can have our last question. Just fit that in.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a question from Louise in Perth. Is there anything you wish you had known about IT service management at the start of your career that you would like to share now?
Right, okay. It's a lot harder than it looks. Jan, start us off and then we'll hear from Josyph.
Yeah. Just to be short, what I would have liked to have known before I started my career there is that IT service management is still very immature. We are only at the brink of understanding what we should deliver. And I think maturity, I've added a link about the value maturity model that will explain what I mean. But I think maturity is the core term here. And if I would have known that we are so immature, I might have just picked another trait. Like a bit of
very good. Yeah. Thank you so much. Josyph, your thoughts then, Stephan?
I wish I had known what ITIL version 3 stand for. So I would have loved to do the full capability in that framework rather than jump into the version 4. And for people who are in the industry, they know exactly what I mean. I wish I had known that was a very valuable infrastructure. IT library is amazing to decompose what service is. It sounds very obvious at the foundation level. And as you step into the vortex, you start expanding your knowledge into more and more detail that is absolutely relevant and spot on. Something happened after version 4. So I wish I would have done the version 2 and 3 to speak better about those than now being at the end of it when it has evolved with other frameworks.
Okay, thank you so much. And Stephan, final thoughts?
When I started with ITSM, this was about clients and servers. And then there was this, imagine this is a hamster wheel, and there were a few holes where you were talking to customers, right? So that's where I started. What I had not expected is how far the complexity of how faster the complexity grew in with regards to what we were really willing to understand, like Jan said. So that we have to manage mobile phones and all kinds of devices. I didn't expect that those times.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I do remember in my early consulting career that my mobile phone battery life seemed to last a lot longer actually than it does these days. But there we are. It's a different kind of device, bringing different kinds of information to my attention. Very good. Well, excellent. Thank you so much, panel. And what a fascinating insight that we've had today into the world of service management through a purely Q&A format, as Robert points out. Actually, it's one of those things that is the most useful to us, I think, to be able to explore a topic very, very quickly and get to the heart of it. So let's go around the panel and hear your kind of closing remarks for the show. Jan, if I may, I'll come to you first, and then we'll hear from Stephan.
Well, I'd like to close with the last term I brought to the table, which is maturity. I think if we want to make some progress, we should understand where we are now. And I've added a link about an ebook I wrote about demystifying the term maturity, because there's so much misunderstanding about that. If someone would read that, I think you would understand your position in the evolvement of service management much better.
Okay, thank you so much. So we've got a little QR code there for folks who are watching either live or the recording. That will jump you over to that maturity model. Stephan, your thoughts, please, and then we'll hear from Mart.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Well, I think to break into IT service management is one thing that people will hate me about this. Don't rely any longer just on ITIL. There are lots of frameworks out there. There are lots of community-driven frameworks like itSM, as it has been mentioned by Mart. And service management also has a great connection to the business relationship management, professional qualification. So to break into that, understanding the wider complexity, that's what it's all about, but don't rely on ITIL.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Some good advice there from Stephan. Mart and then Josyph.
I mentioned the service mindset a few times. I want to finish with a maybe provocative quote, but it says customer satisfaction is worthless. Customer loyalty is priceless.
It's a very good point, isn't it? Because, those moments of truth that we all have, build loyalty or destroy it. And of course, the destruction happens somewhat faster than building it does. So really good point to make. Thank you so much, Mart. Josyph and then Karen.
I would like to say, just to wrap up, in the world of the blind, the one-eyed person is king. No matter where you go, if you have this knowledge, you will be able to see things that other people are not. And it's like describing color to a blind person. What does red look like? What does blue look like if you can't see? How would you describe that? That puts you in the right mindset to actually engage with the concepts and to break into IT service management, just like Jan said before. You need to have an attitude of service-oriented mindset. In other words, I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. How can I assist? How can I be of value? If you ask yourself those questions in your daily interactions, in your work, in your professions, in your study, you will always show up with the right mindset to learn and be with others in a way that you can actually transfer knowledge. In the space of a relationship, anything's possible. The difficult thing about relationships is one person in the relationship is not willing to have a relationship. So then you'll experience problems no matter what.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. I might take some of those hints and tips actually into my life rather than just my professional world. All right. So thank you very much, Josyph. Fantastic. Karen, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I think it's been a really good discussion today. For me, yeah, it is about curiosity, but also about the experience of our customers. Just think about what does good look like for them, and take that into everything that you do. and that will really help bring your service management to the next level. If you're not considering from their perspective, it's not going to be fit for use. It might meet all of the requirements that have been asked for, but the customers won't appreciate it.
Okay, thank you so much indeed, Karen. Charlotte, your final thoughts on today's episode?
I think the one thing that we've learnt today is that there's many different flavours of service management. And I know service management is a thing, but to assist you be a good IT service manager or be good in service management, there's many different options. And I think research to suit your requirements is key. Thank you to the panel and our contributors.
All right, yeah, it's absolutely true. On behalf of everybody online, thank you so much, panel, for sharing your thoughts with us. And I know on behalf of the panel, if you'd like to connect with anybody, please do so. Everybody's LinkedIn profile is displayed actually on our website on apmginternational.com, and we do welcome professional connections from wherever you are in the world. So do take us up on that. I'd like to thank our producers online today for your excellent questions. Great job. And do watch out for your name in the credits if your question was selected. Over on our website, you can, of course, search for the answers to more than 1,700 questions now that have been previously submitted on different shows from more than 200 experts from all over the world. And you can listen to the audio versions on your preferred podcast platform. So a big shout out to the team who regularly publish and produce the audio variants as well. Please do take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe on our YouTube channel. It does not cost you anything, and yes, it really does help new folks to discover our content and be able to level up their careers. Looking forward this Friday, Stephan Brendel is going to be hosting a German language version of the show. It's an episode which is looking at the world of cyber, and it's asking really for us to consider, is it true? Are we really safe when we're thinking about cybersecurity? Is there absolutely any absolute guarantee around that? Followed on Monday the 6th with an episode dedicated to professionals looking at how to become project managers. And then on the 10th, we're going to be jumping into the world of key performance indicators. And in a world where you can measure pretty much anything these days, do we actually know the value of what it is that we're measuring? Subscribe to the show, and we'll send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you too can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you next time.